That was the sound of Delhi Sultanate, some conscious reggae coming out of India. I'm Tara Dorabji. You're tuned into Apex Express, coming at you with an Asian and Pacific Islander point of view from the Bay and around the world. Tonight I'm joined in studio by Delhi Sultanate. He's going to be busting out some music and raising up some social justice issues this Sunday at the Elbow Room in San Francisco. Welcome to Apex Express on KPFA.
Welcome. Greetings to everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming through. It's great to meet you, and I've been digging your music. It definitely makes me want to get my boogie on, and I dig it because it's really ripping out on some hard-hitting issues, you know, and as a reggae singer, how come you've been compelled to really bring social justice into your movement and your work?
Well, I think that's kind of intrinsic to reggae music. Reggae music has always dealt with the colonial experience, has always dealt with injustice. So what we're trying to do is just represent that tradition in India.
And how did you get going on it?
Well, it's a long story. I actually spent part of my life growing up outside. I was in Europe for a few years. I was even in the Bay Area and just was involved with musical movements here. Like at the time, hip-hop was a strong kind of influence on me as a kid, and even reggae music was just coming up. It was a pretty strong subculture in Europe.
And in terms of where did your consciousness come from in terms of oppression and really seeing the issues and how they're going down, and why did you want to get involved in terms of transforming communities and making the global connections as well?
Right. I think it comes from two things. One, when I was living in Germany, suddenly you find yourself being part of a group that's being discriminated against. And you realize that your history is not really featured in mainstream history, not in history books, and it's not reflected in popular culture as well. So we were looking for things. And I think that both reggae music and hip-hop kind of have dealt with the colonial experience and pushed forward an alternate version of history. And that sensitizes you in a certain way, and suddenly it gives you a vocabulary to express your own experience with. And I would say the same in India. I moved back to India about 10 or 12 years ago, and it's very evident that there are a lot of things which are hidden from the surface, which are not presented in mainstream news, which are not reflected in mainstream culture or music. There are a lot of musical traditions which are revolutionary, but you will not hear them on the radio. There are a lot of things which I find very difficult to live with. You know, I mean, if there's gross injustice going on in the society that you live in, at some point you have to ask yourself, at what point is this line crossed where you become culpable for not doing anything, you know?
Absolutely. It's day to day, right? I mean, I think we are all sort of waging that every day. And what do you think are some of the biggest issues in India right now? You're in Delhi?
I'm in Delhi, yeah.
Yeah, I know. Delhi's supposed to be one of the most dangerous cities in the world for women, I've heard.
Yeah, I would say so, for sure. I mean, it's so many things, you know? Delhi is so many things, and there's so many issues in India at the moment. I wouldn't even know where to start or how to sum it up. I mean, I think one thing that one can say is I feel that it's very much a kind of neo-colonial, very brutal regime that's being run, where a minority benefits immensely, but the majority is completely excluded from this growth and is being brutalized. I mean, there's a low-intensity war that's going on in India. Dissent is crushed. Like, people are killed, people get arrested for nothing on trumped-up charges. In the tribal areas, it's just unimaginable. I mean, the kind of atrocities that are being committed, they have something... I mean, you know, I can go on and on about this. There's something called strategic hamleting, where whole villages are vacated. This is a strategy that originated in the Vietnam War. So, as a, you know, similar to everywhere else in the world, as a kind of under the garb of counter-terrorism, the state is heavily crushing down on dissent. And in my opinion, what's really behind this is to kind of help corporate interests getting at land. It's all about land. It's the same as in the colonial era. It's about mineral wealth and exploiting labor power, you know?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And I know that you, as part of the Ska Avengers, were doing a show inside of India's largest jail. So talk to us about that.
Correct.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, how hard was it to get in there? What type of reception did you get? And what was the energy you laid down? Like, break it down for us.
It was a very unique experience. I'm really grateful, actually, we got a chance to play in there. It was amazing. It was, 1,500 prisoners. For me, it was twofold. Also because they had never heard reggae music or ska music before. You have to understand that in India, this music is not popular at all. People don't really know it, you know.
Yeah, it's just breaking out right now.
I mean, most people's cultural orientation is, if not Indian, then it's towards Europe and America. And we make a very conscious decision. Our cultural orientation is Jamaica. They were a British colony as well. Mm-hmm. So for me to be able to represent that tradition in India and then more so to represent it amongst prisoners, you know, felt very special to me. It was a good response. I mean, one of the group members had spent some time in Tihar kind of teaching people music. And just, Tihar is actually not such a bad jail, relatively speaking. I must say, like, a lot of Indian prisons are horrendous, but I would say Tihar is probably much better than the average American prison. Like, they're actually about rehabilitation and teaching people, you know, giving people skills and music and trying to, there are dark sides to it as well. But so my friend realized, Stefan K, he's a keyboard player, he realized that one should do a lot to kind of improve the music equipments available to prisoners. So we got a whole bunch of equipment donated and we were allowed to hold a concert there. It was a good response. I mean, you know, prison life is very boring, you know, so people were grateful and kind of really appreciated the fact that we were there.
And did they respond to some of the underlying social justice themes in the music and come up to you? And
some did come up to us. And some, you know, the thing is they were not allowed to dance, you know. Every now and then...
There was a no dancing rule?
There is, in some parts of India, there is. Actually, I think in Tihar, they were just scared that things would kind of get out of hand because there's so many people bunched up in one place. But they did, you know, individual people were kind of allowed to get up and they started breaking up, which was very gratifying for us to see. They responded well. I mean, I must say that some of the more explicit content we kept down a little bit because we were guests of the jail authorities. You know what I mean? I mean, it's a bit in bad taste if the police invites you to play. You know, so we do our thing, we don't compromise.